Welcome back to my channel for this season premiere of Falcon and Winter Soldier series, and this was really a phenomenal opening for the series. We had some fun action and probably more of what people expect from a Marvel show, so let's jump in. The very opening of this scene with Sam ironing his shirt for the ceremony that we see after this action sequence, I think they are showing this first because it really is going to sum up this series for Sam, at least. Who wears the shield? And I will get to that more later. The opening action scene is really the most action this episode has other than the later flag smasher stuff, and it was honestly gorgeous. We have seen Falcon fight before, but never with this much detail and really defining his fighting style. A lot of this reminds me of Iron Man with the close-up headshots and just overall choreography. We got to see Red Wing in action as well, who responds with voice commands, all features added by Stark Tech, with Torres mentioning that later. In this scene, Sam is on a mission to secure Captain Fassat, who is being held captive by a terrorist organization, LAF. While I mentioned that this opening reminded me of Iron Man, this mission specifically reminds me of the opening of Winter Soldier. Not only is Sam recovering a hostage, but a hostage being held by Batroc the Leaper. If you remember, Batroc, while he is an international pirate, was hired in that movie by Nick Fury as a means to get his hands on some intel that was aboard that ship. This may be a clue that Sam, like Cap in that movie, is being used as a political pawn for some type of bigger game. Anyway, Falcon not only takes out most of the LAF terrorists, I think with the exception of Batroc himself, he secures Fassat before getting into that restricted Libyan airspace. Sam's ground support here is Lieutenant Joaquin Torres, who is a character from the comics and one that even takes up the mantle for a short time after Sam steps into the role as Captain America. That is something we could see on this show. In the comics, Torres was enhanced by Malice, or Power Broker, who is mentioned in the credit art. Power Broker in the comics is affiliated with other characters like Battlestar Lamar Jackson, who some think Clay Bennett could be playing. He is also connected with U.S. Agent John Walker, who was partnered at one time with Battlestar in the comics. Couple this with the Flag Smashers being enhanced too, I think we are going to be uncovering some experimentation to create heroes, possibly a weapons program. After the mission, Torres and Sam talk about a few things. This conversation established the timeline, putting this 6 months after the snap, 5 months after the hex of WandaVision, and 2 months before Spider-Man Far From Home. In this conversation, he mentioned that the Air Force is always messing up his tech, which is an interesting add coupled with the use of Batroc, definitely fishy. Sam gets recognition as an Avenger speaking Arabic, something that Torres points out. Then we get into how the world is operating post-blip. Torres says that groups like LAF are trying to profit off the chaos of the world, which kind of makes sense. Criminals always look for weaknesses to exploit, but the Flag Smashers are something else entirely. And he points out that you can use your phone to find their symbols. And he says they are a group that want the world back the way it was during the blip, a land without borders. So we know their purpose, and from the fight later that they are enhanced. Torres then brings up Cap and where he is, because people know that he isn't dead. We learn that in the museum later. There's some stuff that references him retiring after Tony's death. However, there are some online conspiracies that Torres has read that says he's on the moon. Pretty crazy, right? Well, no. Sword has this big ass ship with Fury and Monica on it. If you've played the Avengers game, Cap finds himself in cryo in a satellite. Not canon, but the point is Marvel is used to doing crazy things. In Washington, we are to the scene that we assumed would have been Cap's funeral and the scene that we see Rhodey. This is not Cap's funeral, but the opening or maybe expansion of that Cap museum section at the Smithsonian. Sam not only gives a really good speech about what a symbol Captain America means, but also passed the shield to the museum, making it clear that he has no intention of taking on the mantle because he feels like this is Steve's legacy specifically. This man here, douche. We are going to talk about him at the end. At the end of the Endgame, it seemed like Sam was excited about the possibility, but now after a few months and seeing where the world is post-blip, he is actually passing on taking this role. Rhodey talks with him about this and tries to urge him to think about stepping into a role, but they are literally walking through the legacy of Captain America. There is his original suit, his first event from First Avengers, the Howling Commandos uniform, a section about him and Bucky and Buck's time as Winter Soldier, and then the unveiling of Hydra when they had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., basically everything. We have the Sokovian flag, and then more about the Sokovian Accords and Cap's refusal to sign, the motorcycle from the original movie, the attack on New York in Infinity War, then the snap, and then Cap's final mission here. Basically recapping these major milestones that Sam just doesn't feel he can live up to. Over with Bucky, we open with a flashback dream to his time as a Hydra's Winter Soldier carrying out a mission. The big moment here is the innocent bystander he kills in the last moment, and then we see that carry over to his current story. Like he told Tony in Civil War, he remembers them all. Him sleeping on the floor is a callback to the conversation that Steve and Sam had in Civil War about one of the big adjustments when coming home from a war are the mattresses, and it seems that Bucky's finding that same struggle, and he also likes soccer. In therapy, we have these very close face shots of Bucky working through what his life is and could be after years of fighting. He denies having bad dreams, and this therapist basically just sees right through him. We learn that he's working on making amends and keeping them in a notebook, also like Steve did during Civil War. Instead of trying new things, Bucky's trying to fix all the shit he feels he's messed up. It seems he has two separate lists: bad people to make sure that they get justice, and families of people he hurt and killed that he needs to make amends with. Running through the names in the book, we have A. Rostov, who is Red Barbarian in the comics. He worked as a warden at the Gulag. Bucky Barnes is serving time in for killing 2 Russian citizens, and overall was just a brutal colonel in a communist country. I imagine for the sake of the show, he's just a member of Hydra. P.W. Hauser isn't something I expect to see on the show. It seems that he is a call out to Sebastian's co-star in I, Tanya, Paul Walter Hauser. Len Kaminsky, sorry if I said that wrong, was a writer for Marvel Comics, previously working on War Machine, Avengers, Iron Man, and more. The most notable name here is obviously H. Zemo. Him and Bucky have history, and we have seen that unfold in Civil War. Not only did he kill T'Chaka and blame it on Bucky, but he used Bucky's Hydra brainwashing to control him into fighting the Avengers, and ultimately leading to the dismembering of Avengers. Maybe dismantling. Dismantling's the word. It is unclear yet if Zemo is imprisoned or free, but we do know that he will be free in this series and a major character. Bucky's 3 roles are no law breaking, no hurting anyone, and delivering the rehearsed line, "I am no longer the Winter Soldier, I am James Bucky Barnes, and I'm making amends," with a smile. He of course breaks all the rules but the last. He hijacked the car, knocked the guy out, but did deliver his speech with the smile to Senator Atwood, who was put in her position thanks to the work of the Winter Soldier and seemed to be setting up to take out another Senator Lockhart that could be getting in her way. I think these missions are much easier for him to perform than the others where he has to admit to killing a family member, and we see that play out in this episode as he befriends Yori. I really like the friendship between them, and I can imagine that Bucky just vibes better with people his own age. Yori sets him up on a date with a girl working there, which turns into a cute Bucky moment when he brings her flowers and plays Battleship. The cat arm just killed me and was so Tony in Pepper's office circa Iron Man 2. I think this date went well for him, and it's something that Cap himself had trouble doing when he came off the ice. However, when she brings up Yori and the grief he has about his son that he mentioned earlier, Bucky is very affected and walks out. This guilt is just so overwhelming. He heads over to Yori's with the intent to apologize and explain, but when he sees the picture, he leaves and makes up an excuse about paying for lunch. Who knows if we will see that girl again, but I liked her. Back over with Sam, he's now living in Louisiana with his sister Sarah and her 2 boys. All 3 of them did not blip, so they went through those 5 years with the boys aging, and Sam missed it all. The main focus of the storyline is Sam wanting to fix and keep their parents' shrimp boat, while his sister, who stayed behind and ran things, wants to sell it as a means to get by. I think this is so important to Sam, not only because it was his parents, but he feels that this is the legacy that he is supposed to be carrying on. Not Steve's as Captain America, but honoring his parents' business. He tries to get a loan, which brings up some weird things about the Avengers, like how do they really get paid? I mean, going forward now he has contracts and uses that, but I guess when you don't sign Sokovian Accords and are a fugitive, the revenue stream really just dries up. Plus, he was also blipped, which is another 5 years with no income, but it seems kind of weird to hold that against a guy, you know? Overall, the bank guy was just super annoying and denies their loan, but Sam promises he isn't going to give up. To the Flag Smashers scene, Torres not only finds the chatter of the meeting for the Flag Smashers, he attends the meeting to see what it's all about. And at first, it's just a bunch of people standing around until they get the signal to grab masks, just as a man jumps from the window of the Switzerland bank with 2 bags of money. The goal of these people are to create chaos in order for the money to slip away. Torres follows the guy that stuck that awesome landing and even confronts him after he hurls a man. He just hurled a man and lands himself a boot to the face. Torres relays this all to Sam, but he never really get a plan of action because they are interrupted by Sarah coming in about the news conference. Right away, we see it as the same guy from the ceremony with Sam. I call him Guy because they haven't given him a name. He's just listed as a government official. So in the scope of the show, I don't think he's necessarily an important character, but we are supposed to make that connection from the ceremony to this conference. He told Sam then that he was doing the right thing by giving up the shield for him to turn around in maybe like the next day and pass it to John Walker. They're calling him the new Captain America, but in the comics he becomes U.S. agent. Obviously the suit is different, complete with a gun, something that Cap didn't really carry and only ever used in First Avenger. Certainly never strapped one on his hip. This really is just a slap in the face to Sam, and I know you're thinking, well, he gave the shield up. Well, he gave it up because he believed that this mantle or symbol is huge and important, and he wasn't sure that it was something that he or anyone else could fill. It belonged to Steve to him. And when he gave that up, he thought it would sit in a museum along with the rest of Steve's legacy, and now it's strapped to this asshat. While we never saw Sam or Bucky interact this episode, I do expect it to come from the unveiling of this new Captain America. I'm also hoping for some more Flag Smashers and Zemo in the next episode. I'm not complaining because I love this episode, but it was just a setup and I'm ready to get more into the nitty-gritty of this story. So if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more. I also do podcasts. You can find me on Google, Apple, or Spotify under Mayday Maggie. And then I also post daily on my blog at maydaymaggie.com.